The sage has arrived. What is going on, y'all? With Season 4 of ReZero coming out in a couple of days, at the time of this recording at least, I figured it was a perfect time to check the show out. Since I've been in the anime community for about 7 years, I've heard about this show countless times. The only thing that looked interesting was the twins who I saw on certain websites for, let's just say, private reasons. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you liked what you saw. Well, I'm going to binge watch Season 2 now. Peace. Watching ReZero in 2026 feels less like discovering a classic and more like being confronted by one. Not because of spectacle, but because of how deliberately it challenges the expectations that come with the genre. Since I've watched a fair share of isekai, the setup is familiar. A boy is transported to another world, assumes significance, and begins moving forward as if the story is built around him. But ReZero quietly undermines that assumption. Subaru isn't placed into a narrative that rewards belief in himself. He's placed into one that exposes how misplaced that belief actually is.
You're not him.
I find that Return by Death is the clearest example of that. It isn't framed as an ability to overcome obstacles, but as a mechanism that forces repetition without relief. Subaru doesn't grow because he retries. He grows because each failure accumulates and eventually becomes impossible to ignore. The series treats memory itself as a burden, not an advantage. What makes this work is that Subaru is not softened for the audience. His worst qualities are not hidden or excused. He's reactive, prideful, and often more concerned with how he's perceived than what others are actually experiencing. There are moments where he is difficult to support, and that discomfort feels intentional. The show isn't asking you to admire him, it's asking you to recognize him. The surrounding characters reinforce that idea by refusing to orbit around him. Rem's arc stands out not just because it's emotional, but because it redefines how connection works in the story. Her shift in perspective doesn't reduce her to a narrative reward. It sharpens the contrast between genuine care and Subaru's earlier self-centeredness. Emilia, in a different way, serves as a similar purpose. Her distance, especially later in the season, doesn't weaken her role. It clarifies it. She is not there to stabilize Subaru. She exists independently of his needs. She's clearly her own character, especially since at the end when I saw that OVA of Memory Snow, I believe it was called, she has an entire hour-long episode of just her backstory. That tension comes to a head in episode 18. Rem's From Zero speech isn't comforting, it's corrective. Subaru lays himself out completely, reducing himself to every failure he can name, and Rem doesn't deny any of it. She simply refuses to let that be the full picture. What she offers isn't reassurance, it's expectation. When Subaru suggests running away, it sounds like escape, but it's really just collapse. And Rem understands that. Her refusal isn't a rejection, it's insistence. She doesn't want a version of Subaru that avoids pain. She wants that version of him that can move through it. The moment reframes everything. It turns the idea of supporting into something heavier. Something that requires change, not avoidance. And almost immediately, the world reinforces that lesson in a different way. Later on, when Subaru steps into the royal selection, he walks in thinking proximity equals relevance. He's confused, thinking that being close to Emilia gives him a place among people who operate on an entirely different level. What he finds instead is a system that doesn't even register him. Each candidate represents a structure of power he doesn't understand. Crutch operates with discipline and long-term control, treating decisions like investments in a future. Anastasia reduces everything to value and exchange, where even information becomes currency. Priscilla doesn't negotiate at all. She exists in a space where the world simply aligns with her, as delusional as it sounds. And Feld rejects the entire structure, seeing the system itself as something that needs to be broken. Subaru doesn't clash with them because he disagrees. He clashes with them because he doesn't belong in that space yet. He simply can't mentally handle it. He speaks emotionally in rooms that demand precision. He reacts in environments built on control, and the result isn't conflict, it's irrelevance. That changes later, but not because he becomes stronger. It changes because he learns to operate differently. By the time the white whale enters the picture, Subaru isn't asking for help anymore. He learns how to negotiate, just like everyone wanted him to. He brings information, timing, and risk to the table. For the first time, he isn't trying to be acknowledged. He's making himself useful. That shift in him mirrors the shift in the show. Side note, but I just want to point out how amazing the character designs look, especially with the royal selection candidates. Each design instantly reflects their personality and beliefs. From Emilia's soft, almost untouchable elegance to Crutch's structured, disciplined look, Anastasia's refined, merchant-like luxury, and Priscilla's bold, commanding presence, while Felt's rough, unpolished design contrasts the whole system she stands against. It's just fantastic. What an amazing character designer. Anyways, The first half feels contained, almost pressurized. The mansion arc especially functions like a closed system. Every interaction matters. Every small change carries weight. The danger is invisible. It's embedded in behavior, in tone, in things that don't quite look right. It's less about fighting and more about understanding. Then the story expands, and with that expansion, it loses its sense of safety. The witch cult doesn't escalate the conflict, it distorts it. Pedro Geese is the clearest expression of that distortion. He doesn't feel like an enemy you overcome. He feels like something you endure. His presence isn't structured, it's invasive. The way he moves, speaks, and the way he simply exists, it all feels disconnected from the world around him. There's no logic to counter. No pattern to solve, just obsession fully realized. And the environments reflect that same breakdown. Places that once felt tense but alive become empty. The mansion loses its unpredictability and becomes something worse. Final. Silence replaces suspicion. Absence replaces tension. Subaru isn't trying to figure things out. He's walking through the aftermath of things he couldn't stop. That's where Return by Death starts to feel different. Earlier, it felt like a tool he didn't understand, but here, it feels insufficient. No matter how many times he returns, there are moments that don't feel preventable, only repeatable. The horror isn't just in what happens, it's in the realization that some outcomes aren't solved through effort alone. And just when the story pushes Subaru to his lowest point, it hits you with something quieter, but somehow just as heavy. The moment everyone knows about, who's Rem, doesn't come in loud, it comes in empty. After everything she meant to him, after being the only one who helped him rebuild himself, she's suddenly gone in a way that feels unnatural. Not dead, not resolved, just erased. I've seen memes about this moment online before, but I thought it was supposed to be funny, not heartbreaking. What makes it land is how little the world reacts. There's no pause, no mourning, it's just absence. It's a different kind of loss, one that doesn't give closure, one that Subaru has to carry alone again. By the time the season reaches its end, ReZero hasn't become larger, it's become clearer. It strips away the idea that growth is something you unlock and replaces it with something slower and far less certain. Subaru doesn't emerge as someone exceptional. He emerges as someone aware of his limitations, aware of others, aware of the cost of moving forward, and that awareness is what changes everything. That's why Season 1 still holds its weight, not because it shocks, but because it refuses to simplify. It stays precise in what it's trying to say, and that precision lingers long after it's over. One last thing I can't ignore is how well the humor lands when it does show up. A lot of funny moments come from Subaru completely missing the social tone of a situation, or Rem's constant deadpan insults, and the way everyday interactions in the mansion somehow turn into high-stress misunderstandings, especially in the early parts of the season. Those lighter scenes don't just break up the tension, they actually make the world feel lived in, which is why the darker turns hit even harder when they arrive. And honestly, that balance is a big part of why I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. Season 1 proved it's not afraid to go to the extreme, so I'm interested in seeing how far it pushes Subaru's growth from here. If this is what starting from zero really looks like, then I want to see what comes after he actually begins to stand on something.